Hey everyone, welcome to ISO for the win. I'm Dave and this is my daily audit. Today's question comes to us straight from the ISO vault. You're conducting an on-site audit at Amy's Widgets, and in the shipping area you see Nick, an employee, loading pallets onto an outgoing truck. On inspection, you see that each of the pallets in the area that Nick is picking from is marked with a red tag, including the one that he's currently loading. When you ask Nick if it's normal practice to load pallets with red tags for shipment, he appears confused and says, "Yeah, I think so." Does this constitute a finding? If so, what type and against which clause? So, one common misconception I see a lot of businesses have is that ISO specifies that businesses need to act a certain way. That's actually an incomplete understanding, because there certainly are requirements that organizations must do certain things, but with a few exceptions, the ISO standard remains completely silent on the topic of what specific steps that the organization has to perform in order to comply with those requirements. In fact, on many audits, that's a common question that I get that organizations asking me. How do we comply with this clause? Which can sometimes be a cause for a little bit of frustration since, as an outside auditor, it's not really proper to recommend or endorse specific processes as the best way for a business to meet the standards that you're auditing to. An outside auditor's role is simply to evaluate whether the organization's current operations are in conformity to the standard, and there are multiple ways to do that. Endorsing or recommending a specific one would be a conflict of interest. The organization would need to hire a separate consultant in order to get an unbiased advice of that type. As an auditor, the most you could do would be to mention some ways that you might have seen other companies meeting those requirements. With that being the case, let's take a closer look at exactly what we saw in the original problem statement. While the common business practice might be to use red tags to signify scrap or other reject parts, the ISO standard does not require organizations to adopt this practice. And there are legitimate reasons why someone might not want to do so. Perhaps red is an important color in their branding, so they use red tags across the board. Or perhaps red tags are part of some sort of color coding system that they use. You might wish to investigate further what these red tags represent, but you do not yet have any observable evidence that the company has done anything against the ISO standard. And given that this use of tags is consistent with the company's other internal documents, such as their quality manual and SOPs, there's no basis for a finding based on the red tags. Some auditors might also have some concerns about Nick's reaction, since he appeared to be confused as to what the correct procedure was for his work. Perhaps you might have thought that there could be a finding against Clause 7.2b, which says that the organization shall ensure that persons doing work are competent on the basis of appropriate education, training, or experience. Given that the usage of red tags is consistent with the organization's normal operations, I would say that Nick might be just confused by the question, and he didn't understand why it would not be normal practice to load the pallets onto the truck. Especially combined with the normal nervousness that many floor employees feel when interacting with auditors, I wouldn't say that this is too much of a red flag. Again, you may wish to do some further investigation to follow up, but it doesn't constitute a finding by itself. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily audit, but until then, I hope you have a great day. You know, I often think about how my channel might have turned out differently if I would have pursued some of my other hobbies and interests other than magic. Hopefully everybody had a little bit of fun getting to try something new in this special Secret Lair episode, but if not, then I'll be back to my regularly scheduled programming come Monday. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? You know, am I the only one who's feeling some really serious deja vu right now?